Howdy, folks. Happy Monday and happy game one of the Stanley Cup Final. We have a Stanley Cup Final now. Game 7 of the semifinal between Tampa and the Islanders went as I expected, and as Russ and I both predicted, Tampa in 7, and we'll talk about that in a second. I'll just throw this out as a pre-show thing. I drove down to visit some friends downstate. It was a 5.5-hour drive, Kev, from Buffalo to Orange County, which is about an hour outside of New York, and then turned around the following day and drove back. And June in New York, you don't think it's going to be really hot. It's hotter than normal around the country. I heard something about it's over 100 in Portland yesterday. It was 95 degrees, and thankfully my car has air conditioning. And, so it was extremely hot, extremely bright, so I had to have the shades on. And I'm behind a guy who's on a Harley going 75 miles an hour with his legs, how guys on Harleys are, with his legs spread wide open on the footrests. And I'm thinking to myself, because I'm behind this guy for about 20 miles, how is this guy's legs not flying off going 75 miles? I mean, his legs got to be pretty damn strong to sort of stay in place, because there's nothing, you got 75 mile an hour wind from, the bike going that fast. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, I don't pretend to understand the aerodynamics of motorcycle riding, but I do appreciate how hot it seems to get in New York in the summer, and it is the humidity. I think it was 15 years or so, my family every year went to New York in the summer to do plays and musicals and stuff. It was just part of our deal, and always I was struck by the sweltering nature of the humidity. And I live in Michigan, where humidity is king, but it just seems like the big buildings in New York City or something seems to hold the humidity. I mean, I'm sure that some meteorologists tell me that's nuts, but it just always felt like the humidity was higher, and therefore, the uncomfortable nature of a trip to New York in the summer was always, much. So,
well, I'm thankful that Buffalo is it's on Lake Erie, and Lake Erie isn't the greatest of lakes. It's not the most beautiful, but you get the breeze off the lake, and it cools down the temperatures a few degrees. But I have to say, like driving through central New York and driving through the Chemung Valley, like say Elmira, New York, and it's 95 with not a bit of wind, and you step out of the car after you've been in an air-conditioned car, and it's like being doused with warm, like hot water. That's how warm it was. And it's like, I'm glad I don't live in these places where it gets up. Like a friend of mine lived in Scottsdale, Arizona for years, and it was 115 in the summer. And I'm like, you know what? Shoot me. I would never live in a place like that. No friggin' way. Hey, Eck.
Hey, guys.
Hey, Eck, Mike and I look like we just rode in from the Battle of Bull Run, and you look so clean shaven. And so, I don't even know what the word for it is.
I'm relaxed, Kevin. You don't see me relaxed all the time. I've been on vacation for a week. It's unbelievable what I've done out here. It's just incredible. I've had so much fun. But I have a funny little quick hockey story related story out here. So when Montreal wins the Stanley Cup, we're visiting one of my wife's oldest and dearest friends who lives near San Diego. And I don't want to be rude, but I have to watch what's going on in the game. Time-wise, it's odd because, of course, that starts 3 hours earlier out here. So we're in the middle of dinner, and I've got the thing where I've got, my glass like this and my phone like this behind it, facing me on the table, and I've got the game going there in silent mode, but just trying because it's going to overtime. And I'm like, well, I'm sorry, guys, you mind if I just put this on because it's going to overtime? So the Habs win, which and I think of all the distress that Mike's under, and then I go. And I, when Montreal scores the goal, and then I get a text from my mom because she's watching the game and she watches exciting games, and she's like, my mom's like, oh my gosh, the Canadians, they won, that's great, it's incredible, it's like so exciting. So I'm just like underdogs. She's like, that's great, and I'm so excited. And then she back, oh my god, I'm so sorry, I forgot you're on the West Coast, I probably spoiled it for you.
Yeah.
And she's like, I know it's tape played out. It's played at a different time out there, right? And I'm like, no, Mom, it's not.
It's not delayed like the NBA Finals was back in the 70s.
Yeah, I know. I'm like, Mom, it's okay.
Or the 1980
Olympics, yeah.
Yeah, Kevin.
It's so funny because she's like thinking that because I'm on the West Coast, the game was just my mom turns 75 next week, so it's just amazing.
Yeah.
I was cracking up. Oh my gosh, that was great. But no, I've seen so many. It's just such a beautiful state out here. We've been driving up the coast.
I have to say this because a couple of friends, I did a day trip downstate to visit a friend who's having his 50th birthday, and they had a bunch of people there. And, they either knew I was a hockey writer or was informed that I was a hockey writer. And they asked me who I covered. And I said, I covered the Maple Leafs. And they said, oh, you have to be so happy that the Canadians won and they're in the Stanley Cup final. And I didn't want to ruin the mood of the party. I just said, yeah,
of course. And that's good.
and quickly walked away and took a shot of something just to take the pain away from that.
Well, I'll tell you this. What's interesting is, usually, I've been out here before, and and just in general, I don't know if you're getting it. You're probably not getting it, but this is not a hockey place. Like, obviously, I mean, LA has its fans, San Jose has its fans, but we've been driving. Like, we're in Monterey today, so we're going to be at the Monterey Aquarium today, and which is incredible, right? So, we've been seeing people that aren't really hockey fans. They're people who we used to know. My wife lived out here when we were dating. And but they're talking about Montreal, like it's a story. It's a story like these people are like they're saying that this is like, oh yeah, Montreal. That I can't believe they're winning. They first of all in San Jose, I'm finding out how much they hate the Vegas Golden Knights. Like there's a huge the party we were at last night. The hatred for the Vegas Golden Knights is very real out here among San Jose people. Because my wife's friend's husband. There you go. That's it. My wife's husband.
Yeah, because your wife's husband is actually you.
Yeah, in Utah.
My wife's best friend's husband was talking to me, and their kids are on a real big travel team that's coached by, it's like the Mini Sharks or whatever. It's coached by Nabokov,
the junior Shark.
Owen Nolan, and one other Shark, the more obscure, I can't remember his name, but those are the coaches of the team, and he was talking about how, great they are and how much fun it is to, Nabokov is such a great guy. Obviously we know Nabokov, he's such a great guy, and he's their coach, and Patty Marlowe's kids on this team. So it's really, it was just a lot of fun. But anyway, let's get into this because we got to go.
Yeah. Okay.
Probably about a half hour before, probably could leave about 1:15.
Go ahead.
Or 10:15 to me. Hello, Hockey World. It is, God, I don't know the date. Geez, that's a good question.
It is
Monday, June 28th, 2021.
I'm Michael Agello.
I'm Kevin Allen of Hockey Buzz. What I really enjoyed that the way you just phrased that the date. What is the date today? So, absolutely.
Vacation time, And I'm Eklund. You're watching HockeyBuzzcast on HockeyBuzz.com. This is the podcast that comes to you Monday through Friday and has been you guys are doing a great job without me. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I will be back in Philly on Wednesday, so I'll be back full time after that. We're talking rumors because we're going to have a lot of them. Today we have to go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, I was going to say, let's start with the Islanders because they lost in Game 7, 1-0. Rather exciting, even though it was only one goal. And I think we just have to touch on them first, Kev.
Yes.
Because I've been a critic of the Islanders, and I picked against them in I think every series, and finally I was right. But I have to give them a ton of credit because they're the type of team that I would aspire any team that I was rooting for to play like. They play with heart, they play with soul. I think they went to the extreme edge of where their talent could take them. But in the end, what I think Russ and I said from the beginning of the year came back to bite them. The Anders Lee injury killed them. Palmieri scored for them in the first few rounds, didn't really score for them that much in round 3. And in the end, they didn't have enough offense to win the series. So, I think that's something that Lou is going to have to concentrate on in the offseason because there's a lot of talent there, but he's got a lot of free agents, a lot of question marks, and they need to score more to be able to play that type of game and win in the playoffs.
Well, you sounded like a coach there. I mean, they took a team that won the Stanley Cup to a Game 7 conference final. I think they acquitted themselves well.
Yes.
They could have easily have won Game 7. Like, I don't think it's an indictment on the way.
No,
I don't mean they lost by 1 goal in a Game 7.
I don't mean it to sound.
I mean, that's how it comes across.
I know.
Like there's something really wrong with that team. Like
sometimes changes shouldn't be made.
Yeah,
like,
there's not anything wrong with the Islanders team. I mean, yeah, do they need more offense? Well, sure, but every team has like they're better defensively. So if Tampa Bay would have lost that, would we have said, well, Tampa Bay's got to do something about their defense, because the Islanders ain't good. So I really like where the Islanders are at. I think, it does show that Lou Lamoriello has done a really masterful job of preparing a team that actually plays very well in the postseason. Like, it's a little lacking in the regular season. I think that's where the goal scoring comes in because, the team we watched down the stretch, as we all talked about, was nothing like the team we saw in the postseason, where they struggled to score goals, and because it's hard to maintain that level of defensive excellence for an entire 82 game season. So I do think they are going to try to get more goal scoring, but I hardly thought it was something they could have foreseen and said, oh boy, if we would have gotten the 20 more goals. I think they're pretty happy with the way they played, and they could have easily won that. And then we wouldn't have said they didn't get enough goals. Until that 8-0 game, they were actually outscoring the Lightning. So
I think Lou did all that he could. I mean, at the deadline, he gave up a first-round pick and a couple sort of B-level prospects to get Zajac, who he knew from New Jersey, and Palmieri. Lee
doesn't do if Anders is hurt. Isn't hurt, and he couldn't have done, obviously, because of the money. But just like to me, I mean, if they can find a way to keep Palmieri there, that would be great. Obviously, he's great.
And they lost Wallstrom too, who was scoring for them in the playoffs. Yeah. But remember, I'm the one.
That'd be good for 1 goal, Mike.
Right. Remember, I'm the one who, before the deadline, and this might be an indictment on me, said, "Why bother trading for Palmieri? You're not going to be able to win without Anders Lee." They did get to Game 7 of the semifinal, but I think that was based on the fact that they got great goaltending from Varlamov, and they played stifling defense, and they knocked players out of the series that they played against, playing the rough style that they played. That's that worked for them, but I think in the end they just didn't have enough offense. And Lou knows what to do, and he'll go out and try to find somebody. There's a lot of offense out there in free agency, and
I mean, you can just make a tweak here and there. To me, like they won the season by winning their final game in that building too. Like that game, winning Game 6, was such a emotional, crazy victory. That had to be, just to be in Nassau Coliseum for that. That would have been something. Like that's one of those things you'll always remember if you're there as a fan. I would have loved to have covered it if I could have at all. It would have. It was just that to me was such an emotional game, so incredibly fun. And to win your final game in a building, that just means something. Like we always talk about, that the only team that gets to win their final game is the Stanley Cup champion and teams that don't make the playoffs. That's how it works, right? Everybody else loses.
The only, my prevailing thought down the stretch of that game as I was watching the end of it was, if the Islanders score, they're going to win in overtime.
Right.
I really felt that. That's why I'm saying it. I just don't share your analysis of, what, they should have saw this coming. They didn't have enough. I mean, they lost by a goal.
I know. I'll admit when I'm wrong, but I'm just saying in the end, I thought that they were going to be undone by their lack of offense. And, the thing is, they were a bounced puck away from tying that game and going to overtime. Barzal on that one timer right at the side of the net could have very easily scored.
I know. So I'm watching that. Understand how I'm watching that game. I'm in the backseat. We're driving up the coast. This beautiful scenery, like mountains on the right, ocean on the left, spotty internet, at best. But I'm in the backseat because I have to watch the end of the game, and I didn't watch that whole game. I only watched like the last 10 minutes of it because I would keep checking on the scores. But when I saw it was 1-0, I'm like, I got to zoom. I got to watch the last 10 minutes of this game. So it would freeze on me every couple seconds, and so as they have the goalie pulled with like the end, it would it froze with that Barzal with the puck on the stick, like looking like, oh my gosh, he's going to score this. This is going to go in. And I sat there for like 45 seconds waiting for that play to happen as we're driving up the coast, and my little circle thing spinning in the middle of my screen. As Barzil's sitting there with a net, I'm like, holy hell, this is going in. And I'm showing my kids, I'm like, look, what do you think happens next? This is kind of fun, right? And it unfreezes, and of course it doesn't score. It was just funny. All right, but let's move on. Let's move on to the Stanley Cup Finals. Kevin, usually you and I have like a lunch today,
Yeah, no, we do. Yeah, it's weird that we're not there.
I know, it's so strange. COVID year, but hopefully next year maybe we can be back.
But Russ is there.
Russ is there. Yeah, Russ is our representative right now.
He'll be on the show. He'll be on the show tomorrow, and I'm going to have to chide him because he just posted a picture of Waffle House down in Tampa, and I'm extremely jealous because I would want to go there either for breakfast, lunch, or dinner.
Waffle House.
I've said this before, I believe, on this show, but I'll repeat it because I think it's very important for people to know is. If you don't have the $200,000 to send your child to get a proper education at a school, what I really suggest to you is for a week straight, you send your kid to the Waffle House at 2 a.m. and have them sit there between 2 and 4 a.m. and they will leave that restaurant fully educated about life because so much happens at the Waffle House.
That's awesome. I love that. Oh my gosh, you're so right.
And you can save yourself $200,000.
That's all you need.
Yeah, for sure.
I listened to a great podcast by John Hodgman, who is like, I don't know if you know who John Hodgman is, but he was and I'm a Mac, I'm a PC guy. He was the PC guy of that. Kind of like remember those commercials. John Hodgman has this great podcast called Judge John Hodgman. And what he does is he gets two people on who just argue their points about stupid things, and he decides who wins. Like and there was a couple on that was arguing the other day about the Waffle House's merits, and it was just that's why I couldn't help but think of it. Really funny. Like this guy thinks they should go to the Waffle House once a week, and his wife says no, we should never go to the Waffle House. And they debate it back and forth for an hour, and he comes up with his decision. It's really worth listening to.
Well, I've got my Waffle House education, and I got it at that time because in the 1996 Olympics in Atlanta.
Yeah.
We were staying out about 15 miles outside of Atlanta, and when we were wrapped up for the day, I was actually covering the Dream Team in basketball. It was the Summer Olympics, not the winter, and I was David Free was our main NBA writer, and I was writing sidebars and stuff. So we wouldn't get out of there till 1 or so, and then we'd all go down to the Waffle House. There'd be about 8 writers, and I'm so fascinated by every night. We'd have something different happening where just drew your attention to the conversation or who the people were or why they were there at 2 o'clock.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
Yeah. So.
I have so many stories that I'm going to tell when I get back from this about California. Let's get into the show. We got to get into this. So here we go. Montreal, Tampa. This to me is. It's just one of those classically fun series with so many interesting things going on with it. And this is the typical, does it end here for the Cinderella team, which it tends to, it feels like this is a lot of times Cinderella teams do make it to this kind of level. Like I think of teams like the Minnesota North Stars against the Islanders years ago, or the Vancouver Canucks, I guess, against the Islanders years ago. Was it the Islanders they played?
Yeah, 82.
Yeah, these teams that have these unbelievable runs.
That team was mostly Richard Brodeur standing on his head.
Right. Or was it McLean? I'm thinking, did McLean stand on his head?
McLean was 94 against the Rangers. It was Richard.
Oh, yeah, but he also McLean's run, Vancouver's run that year was incredible too. So, yeah, so this feels like one of these things, but in a way it doesn't. It has this interesting kind of there's a couple stats I want to throw out there that I thought they were just incredible about this. And the one stat that just strikes me. And I'm sure it's been talked about everywhere, but if you haven't heard it, it's incredible, is the amount of goals the Montreal Canadiens have given up in the first period in the playoffs, which is like an unbelievable number. They have given up 3 goals in 16 games in the first period of the playoffs. Three goals. So that's the equivalent of giving up 1 goal every 5+ games, or like basically in the first period of the playoffs. That's like basically giving up 1 goal in each series in the first period of the playoffs. If you think about it, it's an astonishing number that goes towards the the actual essence of what the Canadiens are. And when I said they could beat the Lightning, when I said I thought they could beat the Vegas Golden Knights, I said I thought they could do so because the Achilles heel of the Vegas Golden Knights was the fact that they could get frustrated by a goalie and could shut down. And they shut down against Dallas the year before. To a degree, they shut down against San Jose, but even though they ended up winning that series. And that's what happened. Vegas, I mean, without Pietrangelo, Vegas that series could have been over really quickly. This Tampa doesn't have that. Tampa's not intimidated by Carey Price. You know, Tampa knows Carey Price inside and out, right? These are divisional foes in the before days. You know, these they know each other. But I do love the essence of the fact that if Tampa has an Achilles heel, you know, which I don't know that they do, but if they do, it would probably be tied to, you know, how Columbus beat them 2 years ago, which they've sort of have figured out how to play against. But also the fact that, you know, so the Jackets in the bubble almost beat them that way. And really, I think the team that came the closest to beat the two teams that came the closest to beating them in this playoffs really did the same thing, which is Florida and the Islanders, which is, you know, Florida especially though, because the Islanders play a different way, but Florida throwing everything at Vasilevsky all the time. Just Vasilevsky's you're not going to score a normal goal on him, put it that way. But you're going to score a goal. You can get to him with weird goals and hard work. And Montreal is pretty good at that. However, you know, at the end of the day, I'm gonna, like, you know what I've said in the last two series, guys? I've said that I thought it would, at least in the Vegas and Toronto series, I said the same thing. It would be Montreal in 7, or Vegas and Toronto, or Vegas/Toronto in 5. Like, it would go quickly. Montreal would win it in the long run. This one, I'm going to change that a little bit to say Tampa in 4 or Montreal in 6. And that's how I feel. But if I have to make a call on this one, I am going to go with Montreal in 6, just because I feel like there's something to this. You know, I mean, and the penalty killing, they've not giving up a power play goal in 30 attempts versus this juggernaut of Tampa power play. There's so many great things. But that's my thought, Kevin.
Well, I just kept before Russ.
Yeah.
Russ gave me his prediction, which was Tampa in 7.
Okay,
Kevin, go ahead. You go next.
Yeah, I think of this a lot of times. I think series lend themselves to really complex analysis because, especially in the modern game, the level of sophistication we now have. But this series, to me, it seems very simplistic. It reminds me of what Pete Rose used to say about hitting. When I asked him, how do you get so many hits? And he said, see the ball, hit the ball. Like we want to make this, seem complicated when really I think this is just a classic. The Montreal Canadiens are playing very well defensively, and Tampa Bay is a terrific offensive team. And both these teams are going to work hard at what they do, and whoever works the hardest and executes the best is going to win it. I don't think Tampa Bay is good defensively, but not like Montreal. And Montreal, can score some goals, but certainly not like Tampa Bay. So it really does come down to a classic confrontation. Both the goalies are outstanding.
Best goalie matchup in a long time.
I remember I used to talk to Dean Lombardi when he was in San Jose, and I love talking to Dean because, he can make hockey seem like, physics. Like it's really complicated. And I remember at various times in a conversation, I wanted to just stop and like if I was in his presence, I would have raised my hand and say, Dean, just get one more goal than the other team. That's all we're trying to do here. And that's what I say about this series. Yeah. That you're just trying to get one more goal than the other team. And that's what I think is going to happen. I think it's just going to be the clash of the defense versus the offense because the goaltenders are both very good. And, you can talk about, every series, especially when we get in the final, we start talking about, he's vulnerable glove side. Or he's not so good down low.
Yeah.
Everybody's got a book on everyone else, but these guys are among the best goalies because, they're not as predictable as people think they are. So that's my take. It's defense versus offense, and it'll come down to that every game. It'll just be the clash of who can outwork the other team.
But what's your pick? You got to go out there.
I'm still Tampa Bay in 6.
Tampa in 6. Okay. Excellent. Mike?
First of all, I think, the stat that you talked about in terms of first period goals. I mean, the Canadians have been scoring the first goal. I think it's up to of the 16 games. I think they've scored the first goal in 12 or 13.
Yeah, something like that. It's crazy.
And the only teams that have Vegas beat them in that comeback in Game 4, but before that, the only team that had beaten them after they scored the first goal was Toronto in Game 2 in the first round.
Yep.
I think that everything that Kevin said is dead on. I mean, it's a great goaltending matchup. I think that the health of Kucherov is extremely important. Now, Tampa's got enough offense, even if he's at a diminished capacity, and he was sort of tongue-in-cheek yesterday when somebody asked him about the state of his injury. He says, "What injury? I don't know what you're talking about. We know he's injured. We don't know exactly what it is. We think it's a rib injury. That is something that hurts every time you breathe, every time you move your arm with a rib injury. But him on that line with Point and Palat, I mean, if they're anywhere close to being at their top level, that's a difficult challenge for Montreal to shut down. But they get enough offense from some of the other lines too, and I think the feistiness of Tampa. Tampa is a brilliant offensive team and a team that has enough sandpaper to combat a team like the Islanders and like Montreal. You had the Maroons and the Goudreaus and Colemans bouncing back against guys like Cizikas and Clutterbuck and Martin in that Islanders series. So I think they're prepared for what Montreal can bring. And I think it's going to be a tight series. Now, this is an homage to Corinne, who we had on the show on Friday. I will continue. I will stick with my prediction just for obvious reasons. I will take Montreal in 4 games. I will take Montreal in 4 games simply to curse them, but that's what I'm going to do. Montreal.
Oh boy! I think one of the things is going to be the key to this series to me is going to be Tampa's third line. If Tampa's going to win, I think that Gord, Gaudreau, Coleman line, right? Is that there has not been a third line that Montreal's faced like that. So far, Montreal has faced teams with solid top lines, of course, but they haven't faced any third line close to that. That third line is going to be hard for them to deal with. The style they play is a hard style to play against. And they started to get it together towards the end of the Islanders series, and they started to come on, and it's always that's something that scares. I think was it Gord who scored the only game in the Islanders in the 1-0 game?
Yeah, scored.
Yeah, so
shorthand.
You can see that line coming together, and that is if that line can, because I kind of believe in Deneau now that he can stop Kucherov. I kind of have this feeling that Deneau line can stop that line.
Well, he'll try to stop Point, but Kevin, what I think Montreal has been extremely successful at is, analyzing the inconsistencies or the soft spots of their opposition and beating them into the ground. And if I'm Montreal, they're going to probably lay the body on Victor Hedman as much as they possibly can because he's hurt, and on Kucherov. And if they do that, they might knock them out of, or at least make them less effective. And if they do that, that's 2 of the 3 or 4 key players for the Lightning.
Yeah, no, that I'm sure they will. I mean, and this, I view this as an old school style series because of the offense versus defense. But it's always an NHL tradition to target the guys who are injured, and it seems like and I don't know this for sure because you never quite know, but doesn't it appear like Lightning have more beat up guys than Montreal?
Yeah, it does. It does. I mean, I think the Islanders. No, when the Islanders are just tough. They really took a lot out of them.
Well, one note, I just saw an update of it. Joe Armia was questionable. He was in COVID protocol, but he apparently is on his way to Tampa, and he could play tonight. So that must mean that he did test negative. Jake Evans was possibly going to replace him. So Evans, he's an extra skater, and Montreal, has some options if Armia is not okay. But so I mean that's good news for Montreal that they're not losing anybody. We saw players in the NBA got hit with COVID going into the semifinals. So not losing a player is a good thing for Montreal.
Can we talk about one of the underrated things of this whole playoffs, and that is Luke Richardson? What he's done now, and we know that obviously he's talking to the Montreal coaches in COVID who will be back, I guess, by game 3, they'd say. But this, I thought the stuff that he did against Vegas, like some of the last minute decisions on like who to put out at certain times, which are not, that's got to be all Richardson, right? Like that's not like you can't call up the coach and say who should I put out right now. Some of the moves Luke Richardson did against Vegas, some of the matchups were just so brilliant. I mean, it really was just. I mean, he deserves his stock going up, like as far as like a head coach goes. And
I don't even understand why he's never gotten a job. Like people have all said really good things about him, and yet he's never really listed among the leading candidates. I know he's had some interviews for jobs in the past.
I mean, in Philly, he was like being around him in practices and stuff like that as a player. Like he was a coach then, like you could tell like he acted like a coach then, and he acted like a coach on the bench. He was a huge part of the Flyers there, that team, and helping the defense as a coach. He was just, you could tell he was going to be a coach. And the interesting thing about that, is just, I mean, the coaching decisions made by Montreal not to play Caulfield for the first 3 games, and then, then Richardson takes. It's been a bizarre off season for the coaching of Montreal. I mean, they've gotten these guys in because other guys got hurt. I mean, without Caulfield, they're nowhere, right? Caulfield is a huge factor right now.
Well, I mean, it's always design and it's always happenstance. If Jake Evans doesn't get hurt in game 1 against Toronto, Kotkaniemi does not get in, and Kotkaniemi has scored some key goals. If they didn't struggle offensively in the first 3 games against Toronto, they probably don't put in Cole Caulfield. They do, and now he's they're one of their more dangerous players. Now, the thing is, I have to say, Tampa is the better offensive club, but Tampa proved in that Islanders series that they can play. If you want to play tactical chess-like hockey, we can do that. That was what Game 7 was. They won one.
Huge.
Yeah, so
right. And that is the difference between this Tampa team and the Tampa team that got beat by Columbus a couple years ago. Like that, this team has learned that since then. That's what they learned in that series.
I also think they're grittier.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a bigger factor than But every loss, paved the way to be here because you learn more by losing than by winning. So. Yeah,
I mean, another factor I don't think you can underestimate. Remember when we had no hockey for a long time? It was all the fun that was during COVID last year, and we put together our greatest teams of all time. And we were sitting here, and I was talking about the greatest Montreal Canadiens goalies of all time, and the debate was, between the top 3, which was really hard to come up with 2, between Plante, Waugh, and Dryden. Those. I mean, and you're sitting there saying Price is amazing, but you can't put him in that group. You just can't put him in the group for me with Plante, Waugh, and Dryden.
And even if he wins a Stanley Cup, I don't think he gets into the top 3.
He probably doesn't still, but at the end of the day, you can tell. I mean, his reaction to that game-winning goal when he puts his hands on his head like this, like we were getting no reaction. Price almost never reacts. Putting his hands on his head to me was him saying, "Am I actually going to have a chance to play for the Stanley Cup with this team?" Like I think that like after seeing this team, the level, the direction it had been going for 5 years, he's a great goalie who knows that his only way to maybe be considered with those guys is to win a cup.
That's what everybody's saying right now. Nobody.
I know, but to me, Price is such a friggin' crazy competitor that is something that you can't underestimate in this series. Like Price has another level beyond what we've seen now. If there's whatever other level Price has, we're going to see it. He's already been amazing, but if there's another level, Price has that ability to win a Stanley Cup and add that to his collection of things, which is what he wants to do, obviously, more than anything else.
The one thing I think that is not going to happen with Tampa is what happened against Vegas that you pointed out, Ek. Vegas got sort of psyched out by Price.
Yeah.
And psyched out by the legend. And they gave up the first goal. Oh my God, we're not going to be able to win this game because we can't beat Carey Price. Well, Tampa plays this guy all the time, so they respect him. They think he's a great goaltender. Yeah. They may think he's a Hall of Famer, but I don't think that they're intimidated by him, and that could go a long way.
He's a Hall of Famer, Mike. No 2 ways about it. I mean,
I'm just laying that out.
But no, and I agree with you, Mike. I wrote that in my article too because I think that they have played against Price before, and Price has a Now, the last 8 games these teams have played, which is hard to say. I mean, obviously they didn't play this year, but last 2 years, Tampa's owned them. They're 7-1 against them. They've outscored them like 34-15. It's like this has been all Tampa, and when they played each other, so they're not intimidated by Price or Montreal. That's for sure. They're looking at this like, wow, in Game 7, they're watching Game 7. They or whatever, like whatever game, again that Vegas series. Tampa wanted to play Montreal, I would say. Like, I think that was a much easier battle for them, perhaps. But Kevin, I have a question for you because I agree with what you're saying. Old school series, great defense versus great offense. That is a phenomenal thing. But I think that normally, you would say if a great defense meets a great offense, that you would give the edge to the great defense.
Yeah, but I think this is a little bit different. Because this offense that Tampa has is, not been like they were only 10th in the league in scoring.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I think it's a different kind of offense. By that I mean, it's proven in the playoffs. Like it's a playoff offense. I mean, Braden Point was good in the regular season. He's been unbelievable in the playoffs, and now he has a pattern of that.
Yeah.
And so I think that's why I see it as, advantage the Lightning on this, just because their offense is a playoff offense as opposed to just a really good offensive team. So, but like I was surprised when I looked it up in the regular season that they were that far down in terms of scoring. But they didn't have Kucherov,
right? And he's there now, and he's enormous. I mean.
Yeah.
And here's the thing about that too. Like to talk about, if you ever want to make an argument to your youth hockey kids that team hockey wins hockey, which is so does obviously, you can sit back and say that the leading scorer on either of these teams would be Braden Point, and he was 37th in the NHL. All right, so we're not looking at there's no big scorers on either of these teams.
Well, I remember when I was the kid and they used to call it the second season. And I was, I'd kind of roll my eyes a little bit, like it become like a cliche, like, it's a different kind of hockey. But, as I got more involved in it, it really is. It's like night and day. Like there's no comparison. Like the Montreal team playing now doesn't remotely resemble the Montreal team that we saw in the regular season. The New York Islanders team that pushed, came within a goal. That's nothing like that team. Teams are just completely different in the postseason, and if you're not going to be successful.
But I think
that to me is the most fun thing about covering the Stanley Cup Finals in general live is you watch these teams in the regular season live, and then you don't see them again. But when you see a team playing in the Stanley Cup Finals, you see like this incredibly crazy, confident team that you just can't. Like you say, they don't resemble at all the teams you saw that if you saw that team in the regular season. There's just no, and they become different. Like this changes them forever. And I mean, I wonder if the younger players in Montreal are going to be awestruck by playing in the Stanley Cup Finals. And Tampa's been there before, but
I think guys like Kotkaniemi. I mean, Caulfield might be awed by the situation, but he doesn't lead on that he is because he seems like a very confident kid. And Kotkaniemi and Suzuki had the a couple rounds last year, so they I don't think they're intimidated.
Yeah.
But the thing is, I think it's because we talked about this on Friday. I think it's becoming more common nowadays to see players like Claude Lemieux who they don't mail it in the regular season, but they pace themselves. They don't seem to like, okay, I'm not going to like go in fifth gear for 82 games. And maybe the shortened seasons, the last two, helped that situation out. Maybe you can't do it through an 82 game schedule and then just turn it on in the playoffs. But we've seen Corey Perry in 2 playoffs with 2 different teams do the same damn thing. He was arguably one of the best players on Dallas and has arguably been one of the best players on the Canadiens. And both times he had terrible regular seasons where he really didn't do much, but he knew when the game counted. And I think he saved his energy and then he turned it on when he needed to. And look what happens.
If I'm a team out there,
he was better for in the playoffs. He's been better for Montreal than he was for Dallas. Like he had a couple of really good games for Dallas. He's been noticeable all the time in this for the Canadians. It's pretty amazing, actually.
I mean, he's becoming like if I'm a team to sign him next year, I sign him I think that, man, he's a great friggin' trade deadline guy. Like if you find a team that thinks they need the one more player to go, like Toronto's out there and they want to pick up. To me, that's just like that's the guy.
But what makes him valuable for a team like Montreal and for like less so for Dallas. For Dallas, I think he was making a couple million a year. He signed with Montreal for $750,000. So you're getting somebody on a league minimum deal that has been that impactful. That's probably what the Leafs thought they were getting with somebody like Joe Thornton, and it didn't turn out as well. But if he signs someplace else for under $1 million, that's a grand slam home run in the bottom of the ninth of the World Series.
Especially for the playoffs. I mean, it's insane. I mean, like what he does to the playoffs. I mean, and just his love of his passion. I heard him talking about the pass he got from Cole Caulfield on the one goal that he scored, and he was just like, "This kid is so fast and so good." And he's like, he's like almost half his age, basically. And he's saying, I have to have my stick down, or the puck's gonna go through my legs. Like I know this. When I'm on the Caulfield, if my stick's not on the ice, the puck's gonna go through my legs every time because he's gonna pass to me even when I don't think he can. And he's just like that. He's like, so I have my stick down. And he's like, I'm just amazed. I'm trying to skate so fast and trying to play so fast because these kids play so fast. And it's really fun to see that generation gap a little bit. And that is my theory. Like I've told you guys before, my theory in players coming up now, they're just so trained. They're trained so well to stick handle and play the game quickly that it's astonishing the difference between them and the older players. I just love it. I think it's gonna be so much fun.
Now at 5:30, Gary Bettman and Bill Daly hold their traditional pre-Cup Final press availability, and more than likely, someone is going to ask them about the situation that's going on with the Blackhawks.
Yeah.
Now, Kev, I mean, I read a couple articles, a real good one from Katie Strang and Mark Lazarus from The Athletic on this situation. And this could get ugly because apparently, according to the article, what happened is in 2010, a video coach for the Blackhawks was accused of some sort of sexual situation. The organization was made aware of it. He was dismissed, but they did not inform the authorities of the situation. And he went on to different places and similar situations occurred. And apparently ownership, the president of the organization, McDonough, Stan Bowman, all knew about this. So right now the NHL isn't investigating, but it sounds like there could be an investigation down the line.
Well, for sure. And there's two levels here. I mean, obviously there is the alleged criminal act of the sexual assault. And then there's just going to be the Blackhawks behavior. And, always, I shouldn't say always, but too many times in these situations, what we discover is that somebody knew about it and didn't say anything. And I think that's the issue. I mean, it's unconscionable if that's true, that they knew about it, that they let him move on somewhere else without some record of this happening where, I mean, we know historically that there's evidence that we have serial predators, essentially. And if they did know something about this and didn't say anything about it, it's unconscionable. And I don't know what the league would do about it. But it's just wrong if that occurred.
Yeah. And the Blackhawks, according to Mark Lazarus, have appointed a former federal prosecutor to lead an independent review of the allegations. So they're doing their due diligence, but this is 11 years after the fact, and that's the problem. The problem is that so I don't know what the NHL is going to do. I don't know how they're going to investigate this, but I do know that Bettman and Daly are probably going to be asked by somebody about this, and it's going to be interesting to see the sort of text.
Their response is going to, I can tell you what their response is going to be. Their response is going to be, we're looking into it legally. We can't discuss it or something like that, I think is what they'll have to say, because I don't think legally they can discuss it. Like, I think legally it's at that spot where, it's kind of, where the authorities are looking into it. We're well aware of it. This is like typical Bettman stuff, like we're well aware of the situation. but legally we can't talk about it. I think that's the only way I think that's the only thing they can say, Kev. I think that's it, right? I mean, that's really it.
Yeah, no, they'll have to kind of wait till it all comes out, but they have to address it, just because you can't allow that kind of stuff to go on and not report it, and you owe it to the rest of the world to
For sure.
If that guy was doing that there, you had to make sure people were aware of that.
Yeah, it's a shame, and it's a shame that that kind of thing. We always have something like that. Like, when was it a couple of years ago when we did it was the Capitals player who was like seen with cocaine. I remember that preference.
That's off.
That came up at the press conference.
Yeah,
and I remember not even knowing about it at the time. It was asked. I was just covering the game. I'm like, who, what now? Cocaine? Where? Social media? Yeah, there's always something like this. Just hopefully it's not true, or if it is true, the people who were affected by it are okay now, or have gotten the counseling they need to get, because it's terrible, like I said. But that's all the time we have. I think that I appreciate. Now, by the way, rumors, guys, because I'm going to give you a little sneak peek of what I'm working at now, and the Marc-Andre Fleury situation is going to be something that's going to be fascinating this summer.
Well, because for a column I'm going to write tomorrow, I did a little digging on this. Fleury, in the final year of his contract, he's a $7 million cap hit. The money is $6 million. If they bought him out, which I don't think they're going to do, if they bought him out, it would be a $2 million cap hit for next season and the season after that. That would make me believe that Vegas would be willing to retain $2 million to trade Fleury, because that's what they're going to take as a cap hit if they buy him out. So as him as a $5 million goaltender, I think a lot of people would be interested in it.
You're right, Mike.
But the problem is he's got a modified no trade clause, and he probably won't go to a number of places. So you're going to have to work with him to determine where you would be willing.
You're going to have to give up a lot for him, though, and the kind of places that are going to be after him are the kind of places he probably would want to go in this situation. Like, I think these are teams that are going to have chances, a chance at winning. Teams like Edmonton,
Toronto,
Colorado, Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh is a big one, and I think
a lot for him.
What's that, Kevin?
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if they are going to have to give a lot for him.
The money, Vegas needs to clear the money to get.
Yeah, but if you have three teams that want him, that's all that matters. Like, if only one team wants him, Pittsburgh.
What's your definition? That could a lot.
Okay, a lot. A second and a third round draft pick, two picks like that.
That's not a lot.
That's not a lot. That could happen. Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, it's a second and third. It's pretty good.
Yeah,
for a goalie, that's your backup. That's your backup goal, or they consider the backup goalie.
It won't be the backup if he goes to Edmonton or Pittsburgh
or Toronto. If he goes to all the three teams that you mentioned, he's the starter.
Yeah, and don't you think that Pittsburgh, that this is like the perfect fit?
Yeah, Fleury, or if it's not him, Freddie Anderson. But I keep seeing that you'll bring in this guy and they'll split. I think they're bringing in a guy to start. So
yeah, well, Fleury showed he can play a bazillion games and not his and he just looks so good. I mean, gosh, I think the Penguins, how far the Penguins could have gone if they had him. And how close they came close to getting him apparently in the offseason. So
split the regular season right down the middle between him and Jari, and then he's the goalie in the playoffs.
And that's just a great story.
Unless your plan is to trade Jari to clear the cap space, which could be, but we'll see.
I don't know. What kind of market does Jari have?
Not a lot less than Fleury. I mean, you're basically giving him away to get rid of his salary. You're probably getting a 5th round pick or something like that.
Yeah, we'll talk more about this for sure in the upcoming days, because I have my opinions on whether they should be trading Fleury at all. But that's another talk for another day. We have much more to get into. And I will be back on Wednesday. I won't be here tomorrow, but I'll be back on Wednesday after my red eye. I might be a little bit loopy. We'll see what happens. Because I don't sleep as it is. But thank you, Kevin, so much. And thanks, guys, so much for filling in, and Kevin, for all your great articles that we've been putting over in my spot as I've been vacationing here with the family. Remember, folks, without the buzz, it's just hockey. We will talk to you tomorrow.